Hello and welcome to the Money and People podcast, the show that connects the dots between financial success and the power of human capital. Today on the show, we are joined by a powerhouse of a woman, Miss Mfikeyi Makayi, who is the CEO of KoBold Metals Africa. Welcome to the show, Mfikeyi.
Thank you, Talia. It's been fun planning to get onto this show.
Yes, and I'm so happy that we finally got to have you here on the show. We've been looking forward for a long time.
Thank you. It's an honor.
Yeah, and I love the outfits. Can you tell us a bit more?
Which one? The corporate outfit?
No? The Mpala vibes I'm seeing on the head?
Well, I mean, it's February 22nd.
Yeah.
And part of celebrating our Zambian heritage amongst our very diverse culture is we're celebrating the Ngoni people of Eastern Zambia. And I'm an Easterner, though I'm in Senga, but I'm also Luvali and Mambwe for context. Wow. And being an Easterner, we're proud people. We're the wise ones. So
exactly. Why not? Why not? Next time you bring me one. Okay, so Mfikeyi, as we begin, I would like to start with just some icebreaker questions. You being a CEO of a mining company, if you weren't in mining, what would you have been doing professionally?
I would have been a historian.
Okay. Tell me more about that.
I loved history growing up. I'm one of those people who could name all the African capital cities, all the African presidents, particularly African history. But I do also like world history, contemporary history. So I'm a big reader of a lot of political books and history books. So I'd have been a historian. But when planning to go to university, my mother said, I'm not going to pay for you to go study things that everybody already knows about.
Oh, wow.
So I obviously went into a technical field, but my love for history has never ended. So I probably, if I retire one day, I'll just probably focus on the modern history of Zambia or something like that.
Okay. So since you love reading about history and stuff like that, what's your favorite historical book?
I have a series. I can't name one, but I like to read about Thomas Sankara, who was a Burkina Faso. He was a Burkinabe revolutionary. A lot of the Latin American history and Central America about the Bolivar Revolution, the Haitian Revolution. Haiti was the first Black independent republic of the world. It won its independence in 1801 against France.
Oh, wow.
There's a book called The Black Jacobins by C.L.R. James. It's a fascinating book. It might have been far off, but it kind of paints on how that independence had an impact in how the rest of the world was colonized, including the African continent. Haiti's success. Obviously, today Haiti is in a different space, but I would say that's one of very good books, and just the history of Thomas Sankara. And there are many, many African books I have, even of Kenneth Kaunda as well. I've got a few books that actually my mother had. For somebody who didn't want me to study history, we had a lot of KK books in the house. So that's more on the personalities and the revolutions. But I do have a range of other books that I like reading, linked to history as well. And I'm diving a bit into Asian history. I'm reading the story of Genghis Khan, who was a Mongolian warrior as well. So, learning about the Chinese dynasties, the Ming dynasties and everything like that.
Interesting.
It's just fascinating for me.
Yeah, sounds really interesting. And what's one thing most people wouldn't guess just by looking at your professional role about you?
I can cook lumanda.
What? How did that happen?
Well, everyone just looks at me and thinks I don't know how to cook a Zambian meal for some reason. And I use lumanda because it's a very Eastern dish, but yes, it's my favorite dish.
Okay.
And I think I probably cook better than all the Mateveto places out there, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's one. Two, I have a very lean wardrobe.
Okay.
Yes.
Why is that?
It's for efficiency.
Yeah.
So I have 5 white shirts that I plan every day of the week and 5 pair of jeans.
Wow.
When I'm not working from the site. And then on site, being in the mine sector, we kind of wear our PPE. But so my wardrobe in terms of my professional life is like monocolor.
Okay.
Very deliberate. And I started doing that in my previous job when I was at Barlow. But I realized it helped me not waste brain space thinking, what am I going to wear today? If I knew every day I was going to wear white, it means I've got time to think about other things.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think Steve Jobs also used to have that principle, because you want to reduce that decision fatigue. What am I going to wear today? What am I going to do
I actually learned from an article. So Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, there are few personalities that they just wear one color. And I think even Bill Gates just either wears like she's got a sweater. It's the same stuff.
Yeah.
But it means they've got space in their minds to like think and solve problems. You're not sitting like, what am I going to do today? So I've got, my wardrobe is very lean.
Okay, that's interesting. And for someone wondering, what's the day in the life of a CEO like?
Very normal. I only became a CEO 18 months ago.
Okay.
I don't think it's as hyped as people make it. Yes, it's a different, I don't want to say it's a different life, to be honest. I think it's the title. But I don't think it will be different from an MD or any person in a position of leadership at any level. Of course, the buck stops at you. The responsibility, if something goes right or wrong, stops at you.
Yeah.
But I find my days kind of, I wouldn't say every day is different. I structure my days. I try structure like, okay, I have a no-day meeting. I try say Fridays, I don't want to have meetings on Fridays. I want to like push out admin work. I do a lot of reading. I think it's the type of company where I'm in, and it's a mineral exploration company, and we use a lot of science. We're using a lot of artificial intelligence techniques. So I commit a lot of time to reading scientific papers. We read a lot of books as a company. We also read books. We have author hours where we can even invite an author who's written, I don't know, something about statistics or something. And then the company has to read the book. Like, not everybody does because people are busy. But I am very deliberate about trying to keep up, because you're now operating at a certain global scale. Even though I'm based in Zambia, you need to know what your peers are doing in industry or you'll be left behind. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think that's something I would like to adopt. I've learned something today, is to always look to learn more about what's happening in my field, and I'll try to implement that with my team. Okay.
So I'd like to go a little bit into your career journey and how you've broken barriers. So as a woman CEO, what were your early days like, first of all, in mining? Even before we talk about your life as a CEO, what were your early days like in the industry? Was it easy to blend into a male-dominated industry?
The early days were absolutely fantastic. So I started my pure mining career. So I should step back. Before I became a mining engineer, which I did at master's level, I studied civil engineering. And my first job was at First Quantum's Kansanshi mine in Solwezi. I was working in the process plant under the civils division, and we did all sorts of work linked to support the process plant activity. So that would be, if you needed to build a new process water pond, this is just part of the processing part of copper. They would call on the team I worked in. I was a civil supervisor. There'd be contractors. Okay, here we need a pond. You need to help the guys who are working by the crushers. The crushers are not stable. You need to reinforce the retaining walls. You need to go shotcrete it. So we did a lot of civil maintenance, small site infrastructure, and it was highly dynamic. And because I was someone who went into an engineering field, already loved being outdoors, being outside was no issue. You literally, there was nothing like sitting in the office. You report at 6 in the morning, you already have machinery there, you need to start digging a pond, or there's a collapse somewhere here, you need to go fix it. So those early days were very hands-on, and it was also working with a lot of people who are in the trade skills, bricklayers, steel fixers, operators, and being able to relate with them. And I think that exposed me to supervision very early on, though I was quite young, and it was absolutely fantastic. Of course, I might have been like the only girl in this field of men, and there were women too, of course, smaller numbers. But how you carry yourself, they find a way to kind of protect you, because you have to learn to have a lot of empathy, because people are coming from different structures of society, different strata socially of society. So here you are, you're a young engineer and you're working with tradesmen. When you lower yourself to work at their level, there's a certain respect you earn. You're not trying to show off like, oh, me, I have a degree, shan. You work at that level, you get in the mud, you cast concrete, you use a shovel, you do that work. So I did that for the first couple of years. I moved around the process plant. So anything linked to, at that time, Kansanshi process plant, because it was the site was expanding, and what the processing teams need, sometimes there'll be what they call a plant shutdown. They need to do maintenance on the full plant. They'll be like, okay, civils, we need concrete here. We need to reinforce this. This thing is not stable. We need a foundation made here. So you're doing all sorts of work. So I did that for about 3 years, and then I got transferred to the mining division. And at that time, the company was also sponsoring different people to go study mining. So globally, for context, people entering the mining field and geology field is actually shrinking. the skill, the people who are in the sector maybe 20 years ago, a lot of them have retired. And that skill is not being replaced fast enough.
Okay.
So what First Quantum did was very deliberate to bring people from different fields. So I was civil, there were people from survey, there were people from management, people from accounting, and then they advised us to go and do a mining course. So I ended up going to the UK, and I was sponsored by the company. And then you get bonded for 3 years to kind of pay back that sponsorship.
Okay.
And then I got moved to the mining division, and that's how I got immersed into mining. So I opted to do the master's course part-time. My colleagues went full-time, but in doing it part-time, I got to work in the pit. So now you're working as a miner, bashi mine, vana mine, as they call the female miners. You do that work. So I became a blaster. Wow. I learned how to handle explosives. I learned how to drill, like operating a drill rig. I got certified. It's like the way pilots have to fly certain hours to get certified. You have to do certain hours to become a driller. Just the same operators that you see, bashi mine. So you do that work. Okay. So I did that, and it was just transformative because I understood now end to end what happens in mining. From the time you design the area you want to mine, how much copper in this case, it can be any commodity, you need to extract in that area. You design a mine plan, you put the drill pattern, you drill the drill holes, you load it up with explosives, you blast it, you break the rock in short, and then you haul it. You'd haul it to the crusher for processing into further refining downstream. So now I saw that cycle end to end, because now you're working with the miners, you're talking in the radio, and mining language, if you're in the copper belt, so they've got their own language, right? So, you start saying, hey, I'm mining in nyafu nyafu, meaning I'm in soft stuff. The stuff is soft. Okay. So if you're driving through it, if you're driving a car through it, you'd find machines or cars are like sinking, Okay. So you go through that cycle, then you work day and night shift. So how do you manage in the night shift when there's fatigue? An operator is dozing off while driving a big truck. So you get to see how serious mine accidents can be and how you have to manage people when they're working 24 hours. Okay. So those shifts were like from 7 to 14 was day shift. Then you do that for 5 days. Then you have 1 day rest. You change over to afternoon shift. You go from like 14 to 23 for 5 days. And then you rest 1 day. You go from like 23 to 06 for the next 5 days. Then you rest 3 days. So now imagine people do that for 30 years. So I did that for 3. Wow. So that cycle, it's a lifestyle. Yes. Your days and your nights, your Mondays and your Fridays are just monotonous, and they're just like that. So people work like that. That was an open pit mine. That if you go to underground, them it's like 12-hour days. Oh wow. Your copper belt mines, they work those sort of shifts a bit different. So that's how I got into mining. I've kind of gone a bit. No. That puts a lot of things into context. And I was going to ask you what obstacles you faced in that journey, but it just sounds like you were having a great time. I'm sitting here like, okay, I'm trying to pick out the obstacle in that. The bathroom. Oh, really? If you're underground in a mine, there's no facilities for women. For women. Oh, my God. In the bathroom. So, well, to be fair, there's also no facilities for men. So you can imagine what they're doing. I'm talking about mines that are old in Zambia. If you're in a modern underground mine today, let's say in the Western world, they build toilets underground. There's no one who's going to bring you from 2 kilometers underground to surface to go to the bathroom. Oh, wow. Right? So what do? You just keep it in the whole day? Well, I'll leave that to imagination. But I mean, in the open pit, if you're in an open pit, these things are vast, like between here and, they're vast. So you can imagine driving around and you're left on a certain mining area for like the whole shift. Wow. So you got to figure it out, and it's open. it's just, you have to figure, okay, I'm going to go behind there. It is what it is. No, so, that makes me really think about it. That's obviously operation, and there are a lot of female operators out there. So there's spaces that mines are trying to navigate with. The more women are coming to work, especially at operator level, to accommodate that. Other obstacles, I think it was just, you could tell that many people also not used to the idea of having a female on a shift. And that sometimes came from management. So when I wanted to learn how to drill, I took myself to training. I'm like, I want to learn these machines. There was a certain manager who was just worried. So drilling it's quite a technique. It's sensitive. Think of the guys who do boreholes for water, that work that's involved. So similar principle, instead of water, you're trying to break rock. Yes. I remember this particular gentleman who was from South Africa saying, no, you're going to like break or damage the machine. So when you drill, you have what they call a drill string. It's the rod that goes into the ground to break the rock. oftentimes drillers, the normal operators, just because of techniques, they would lose the rods. When you drop it in the ground, you can't pick it up again. And the cost of a rod was about $5,000. So they used to tell everyone on shift, like, when you drop that rod, imagine you're dropping a Toyota Corolla. At that time, a Corolla was like a $5,000 car.
Oh, wow.
So that the idea is to help connect the cost of not drilling properly. Saying like, guys, when you drop those things, it's like dropping a Toyota Corolla. So there was a time like the operation was just struggling. We were drilling in this bad ground, and people were dropping rods, and it didn't matter the gender. It was mostly male drillers. So I wanted to learn how to drill at the same time. And there was this assumption that you're going to drop the rods. So I remember getting in trouble all the time because I always found myself on the machine because you have to get your hours. If you don't do your hours, you won't get your certificate. So I got in trouble. Somebody reported me saying she's dropped the rod, and I never dropped the rod. And it was because that particular person didn't want me drilling. So I kept, I went to his office and I was just like, somebody said I've dropped a rod. I want to know which shift, what date, because you sign logbooks. And if you drop a rod, like, it's such a process to try. You have to stop the machine. So I literally went head to head with this gentleman, and he blew up at me. And I remember telling him, I also had a bit of an attitude. I remember telling him, I'm scared of two people. My mother, and at that time, I would say the Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu. Remember, I like history. And that time, my mother used to just watch the history of Israel a lot as well. So I would say, I'm only scared of two people. Like my mother said, God and Benjamin Netanyahu. But I was basically saying, you shouldn't be intimidating me because I've not made any mistake. And if I've dropped the rod, there's a process to report me. And I've not dropped the rod. So there were these assumptions like, a female in the drill, she'll drill slowly, she'll slow down production. Because remember, as managers, they're also chasing KPIs. And then you have a trainee wanting to get their hours. So, in retrospect, you tie all those things back. You're like, okay, I need to develop talent, but I need to chase production. Now, if I start developing talent, I'm slowing down my production, right? So those were some of the things I went through. But I also had very, very good managers, gentlemen who were encouraging me at the same time, because there were not a lot of females around. So for me to get there, it means there were also men who were encouraging me to go on.
Okay, that's interesting. And now that you've brought out the aspect of just people who were helping you, what role did mentorship play in getting you to the level of leadership that you're in today? And is there anyone in particular that mentored you and helped you to be where you are today?
Yes, I think through every stage of my life, I've had a suite of different mentors who came in at different times and played a part. I know nowadays mentorship is a thing and it's formalized and structured. But at that time, it wasn't like I had a mentor assigned. I just had, I would say, people were looking out for you. And then you realize this person is actually mentoring you. So I had that. I always default that my mother would have been my first mentor. But in the workspace, there was the exploration manager at First Quantum, James Mwale. He passed away. I would say he mentored me for 10 years. And he has touched and mentored a lot of Zambian geologists. He's revered in the world of exploration geology. So Mr. Mwale was someone I would go to, and even when I was having these challenges on the rigs, I remember telling him, no, there's this problem, and he'll just say, si company he would tell me. I'll always remember him for that. He would basically say, understand that there's also a political system in these big workplaces. So be careful how you navigate them. So I'll always revere Mr. Mwale. I had a very good friend in university. I studied in the States, and he was from Guinea. His name was Dr. Saiku Diallo. He was like a big brother and a true mentor to me in my uni days. He also had the culture of, not teaching me to not be entitled to certain things. So he's still a very good friend of mine, someone I look up to this day, and I still stay in touch with him and his family, his wife and kids. When I was at Barlow World, there was a gentleman, Paolo Felin. I was actually assigned to him formally, but I think even after I've left Barlow World, he's always checked on me. And he also helped me through my leadership journey at Barlow World. He's a retired Caterpillar. He was the vice president of construction or construction industries at Caterpillar. And I also have high regard for him. There's so many people. Like I want to be careful to not overname, and then someone says, even me. But
yes, no, I understand you. But also for yourself, I know a lot of people look up to you. So what values do you try to impart in the people that you are mentoring, whether it's just by watching you or the ones that would want to formalize like a mentorship with you, are there any particular values that you would want such a person to come out of a mentorship with you?
Yeah, I think values. There's so many, but I'm trying to make it concise.
Okay.
The biggest thing, I think I'll just sum it in a book I read.
Okay.
It's a book called The Road Less Traveled by M. Scott Peck. That book calibrated me. I think after the Bible, I probably looked to that book.
Okay.
It aligned the way we are raised, gives us a frame of reference or a view of life.
Yeah.
What you think you deserve, what you do deserve, and how you see yourself as well. So that book calibrated me because, in short, it says everyone is on a spectrum of narcissism and being a neurotic. So I think narcissism is where everything is everyone else's problem and you are perfect.
Yes.
And then neuroticism is where you blame yourself for everything.
For everything.
And everyone lives on that spectrum.
Okay.
And we are constantly fighting the battle of where we sit. So when I meet you, you're on that spectrum, I'm on that spectrum. And everyone's values are framed from how we are raised. It literally starts in our homes, our parents' values, the culture, and then the paths we choose to live after that. So when I look at the things I tell people who I may be mentoring, I have a few people that have asked me to mentor, then I've reached a capacity where I've limited myself because I also need to be effective for them.
Yes.
Otherwise, then I'm not a good mentor.
Yeah.
The biggest thing I tell them is understanding that spectrum of narcissism to neuroticism, which also speaks to entitlement.
Yeah.
And then knowing what you stand for, what are your personal principles about life, about people, about society, away from the workplace.
Yeah.
Because mentorship, we talk about applying it in the workplace, but it's literally about applying it in your life. Because how you are in your life will reflect in every circle you're in, your schoolwork, your school space, your workspace, your family space.
Yeah.
So those things, you cannot be exceptional in the workplace. If you're not exceptional in your school life, you're not exceptional in your family life, those things cross over.
Yeah.
And I try not to make sure that we're not isolating them. That applies to me as well.
Yeah.
How I'm operating at home. If I'm disorderly at home, I'm going to be disorderly at work.
Yes.
If I'm disorderly with my family relationships,
yes.
I'm going to be disorderly in my school educational setting. So those are the things that I ask people to also reflect on and realize first, and establish what are your values.
Yeah.
What are your fundamental principles? For me, things like corruption irk me. Ethics are just so human ethics.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about ethics in the workplace only.
Yes.
Human ethics. Human rights, respecting people. Doesn't matter where they are in the social strata of life. Tables turn.
Yeah.
So how you treat people today, tomorrow it flips.
Tables might
So
turn,
that self-awareness is so key. So that book, The Road Less Traveled, I think it helped me deal with my own personal traumas. I was raised by a single mother.
Okay.
And when I understood where I sat on the spectrum, and I was more of a neurotic, I blamed myself for a lot of things. Like in my life, things that I was a child, and I'm blaming myself for things that happened, but I'm a child, right?
Yes.
So it's like a great self-help book. That's what I call it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll try to look for it and read it.
The Road Less Traveled.
The Road Less Traveled. Okay. And so in your journey, were there any times that you felt self-doubt? Like, especially as you get into roles of leadership, are there times when you feel like, okay, there's so much responsibility, or how do I handle this? So how do you deal with those moments?
Yes, I felt self-doubt. I even feel it right now while I'm on this podcast. It's a human emotion.
Yeah.
I mean, even when I got this role, that was, when did I get the offer? March 2023.
Yeah.
My first reaction to the founders when they interviewed me, mind you, I went through I think 7 rounds of interviews. I was even tired. I said, if you don't want me, it's okay.
At this point.
But then I remember when they offered me the job, I literally said, are you sure?
What?
I told them, I'm like, are you sure I want to do this?
Yeah.
And I'll share this because this is important for people. I literally said, are you sure you don't want a white person in this job?
Really? Because that's the traditional image for such roles,
also you
right?
just think if I mess up, I'm messing up for every other Zambian African after me. The same even at Ballwood, and I became the first country manager. I was just I was so pedantic. I was also so hard on myself, but I was hard on my colleagues because I kept saying, guys, if we mess this up, chapwa.
Yes, I remember that.
You remember that? I literally said, chapwa, we're done.
Yes,
To never come back.
yes.
Unfortunately, because of inequity in society, others can make mistakes and get away with it. But with us, unfortunately, we don't have a great track record as Zambians running this industry. We don't have a good track record. People don't want to talk about it. So you have to seek excellence.
Yeah.
Everything. If that means reading more,
Yes.
if that means getting better leadership skill sets, and I make mistakes. It doesn't mean I'm a perfect person. In seeking excellence, you are always striving to be better. Somebody actually yesterday told me, sometimes you seek excellence so much that you overprotect.
Yeah.
Because I want tomorrow that there's nothing like, they failed. You see, we tried. It didn't work.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
that's true. Okay, that's quite interesting. And then what qualities do you think set you apart um, as you rose through leadership levels?
This quality. We are warriors. We are fighters.
We are fighters. Yeah.
I do have a warrior mindset. And
Yeah.
I also listen to a lot of I listen and read, particularly to podcasts or snippets about stoicism. It's about living a simple life.
Yeah.
And a very focused life.
Yeah.
So there'll be, these short writings. The Romans were known for this. Marcus Aurelius. And this is why I'm reading these books about soldiers. If you think about it, all these earlier books I told you about, it's fundamentally from a military perspective.
Yeah.
If you a revolution, what makes someone start a revolution?
Yeah.
So you're trying to go into the mind of these people who did something at that time.
Yes.
So Stoicism is about a form of minimalism and living a certain type of life with purpose, living within your means. Those, I think, those things set me apart. Because you look around, if you just look at Zambia, Zambia is a fantastic country.
Yeah.
Beautiful people.
Yeah.
Beautiful cultures. Somebody even says, Zambia, we don't even know what's wrong with you. Other countries have problems. But Zambia, you don't have problems. Why are you still poor?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Make it make sense.
But then you look at the bigger scheme of things, because I like African history. Zambia only contributes less than 3% of Africa's GDP.
Oh, wow.
So we're not even moving the dial. We love our mining, it's big and all of that.
Yes.
But you're just 3% of Africa's GDP. So that calibrates you to say, you're still small.
Yeah.
And that humbles you as well. So it makes you say, all right, what do you need to do to get stronger and bigger? And that's, I'll call it, it's like a warrior mindset, but in business. Excellence. To the point of drive excellence in everything that you do. Like my private life, I love to work out. I came from the gym before coming here because it was just not a negotiable. I guess I have to wake up, I have to be physically fit.
Yeah.
If I'm not physically fit, I'm not going to be mentally fit. I also seek mental health services because I want my mind to be strong. I don't know everything.
Yes.
Spiritual fitness as well. Prayer.
Yeah.
If you don't have a form of a spiritual life, irrespective of what God or how you believe in your God, connecting with people.
Yeah.
Your circle of friends.
Yeah.
Are they adding? Are they taking away?
Yeah.
So those are things that I use as my levers.
Okay.
That should translate in what maybe people see as, oh, this is, and it doesn't mean it's perfect. I make mistakes. Maybe I'm not a good friend to somebody else.
Yes.
But I have to be self-aware of how to correct it. Learning when to say sorry.
Yeah.
Learning when to say, or how to say, I made a mistake and I want to correct it.
Yeah. It's good you brought out the aspect of self-awareness. That's really important, especially today when we talk about mental health discussions. They're really coming to the table with us because you need to bring your best self to your workplace, right? So as we talk about self-awareness, do you think your leadership style over the years has evolved from where you started?
Yes.
Okay, what has changed?
I started asking for feedback on how I led people.
Okay.
And you may have remembered this, the start, stop, continue.
Yes.
Yes. So in my one-on-ones, I would always ask, what should I start doing that will help you?
Yes.
What should I stop doing that affects your work negatively?
Yeah.
And what should I continue doing to help? So, and then you listen.
Yes.
Irrespective of what they say, don't get defensive. So when I started doing that, and then you see a pattern. If everyone is giving you the same, stop doing this.
Yes.
So the one stop I got is you lose your temper. You don't sit, like when something was going wrong.
Yeah.
I would immediately want to remedy it.
Yeah.
So when 5 people tell you the same thing, you're like,
you need to introspect.
Yeah, I need to introspect. And that, now when you do it over that's one conversation. Now let's say you do it twice a year.
Yeah.
For like 5 years.
Yeah.
You are going to shape, you're going to see where you're going to go. And when you get the continues and when you get the starts as well, and it starts shaping you.
Okay.
So those are things that I always ask my colleagues for feedback even now. Like, tell me, like, I don't get offended.
Yeah.
I sleep at night.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah. Okay, that makes a
Yeah.
lot of sense. And it sounds like you do make sure that you are in a good mental space for you to bring your best self, right? So how do you as a leader also ensure such an environment in your workspace for others?
So it's very good to be a partner with HR, the people part of money and people.
Yes.
You're a partner, you're a co-consultant, you're part of HR.
Mm-hmm.
You're part of designing programs. You assess where your team is, where your company is from a people perspective, and you design solutions to help uplift. And you see, you get feedback, you know. So many companies formally will have these engagement scores, you know, employee engagement, and everybody does it. And when that feedback comes, you partner with your HR expert and you say, all right, this is the sentiment of the workforce.
Yeah.
And you figure out a way with now people who are in that service space, whether it's, oh, there's some mental health needs here.
Yes.
There's some financial literacy needs here.
Yeah.
There's some upskilling.
Yeah.
We're living in an age of technology.
Yeah.
There's some technology skilling that's critical. And this is not a one-off solution. You plan it over a number of years with the goal of we need to get this group of people to level this.
Yes.
And that's how you systematically do it. And then you do it over and over again.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is taking me back to your time at Ballowworld. For those who don't know, Mfikeyi was once my boss because she was the country manager. And one thing that was very much noticeable about you is your passion for people and their development. Where do you think that passion came from?
That's 2% of Africa's GDP. I think it came from seeing people who worked in just, what's that Bemba saying? Umwana shenda. You go around and realize, guys, we are behind. So you come back and that you realize that it's people who take you forward. Yes. You can have the tech, but if your people don't know what to do with the tech, how many offices have computers sitting around? Yeah. But you're not using them. Yeah. So my passion for people is twofold. In uni and in school, in secondary school, I played a lot of sports. And every sport, for the most part, is in a team. Even if you play a single sport, like you're a runner or you play tennis, you still have a coach, you still have a team. Yes. And the team is only as good as its unit. Yes. Those soccer lovers, you know, there's always this Ronaldo versus Messi debate, right? Yes. So one is seen as was central to Barcelona. Yeah. And the worry if Messi was going to leave, what would they look like? And then Ronaldo was seen as, in my view, excellent. He was at... I believe he started in Portugal. Was it at Sporting? Yeah. And then he moved. He was at Man U. He was excellent. Madrid, excellent as an individual. So I also use a lot of sports analogies on how you ensure excellent team performance. Yeah. And that starts at people. Yeah. So you can have a star, but everybody else is average. Doesn't mean the team is going to go well. Yeah. If you know what I mean. It's not going to perform well. So Zambians who love soccer, we're excellent analysts of soccer. If anything, all of us, we are coaches. We are coaches of the Zambian national team. Yes. We're coaches of Man U. No, this is what he should have done. Ten Hag this. You start arguing. Meanwhile, you can't even manage your division, right? Yeah, yeah. It's down to try. Oh, fantastic other book, Arsene Wenger's book, because of how he built Arsenal, like from the academy side. Yeah. So if you read that book as a business book, yeah, it shifts your mind on what building a team is like. The football coaches, I think any sport, but I'm using football. If you're a football coach, that is the hardest job because football is a business. Yes. But it's also dealing with people. Yes. So exceptional coaches over multi-decades. Your Arsene Wenger's, a degree of Sir Alex, but see what happens when Sir Alex leaves. All of Man U has been struggling for years. Yes. That succession planning is so important if you want to transfer it to politics as well. Yeah. Succession planning in politics, we've seen it in Zambia, in Zambia's political arena, where if you don't succession plan, there's going to be a bit of confusion. So that's where I tap into how I can apply this in the workplace. I must know that once I'm in this role, somebody has to take over for me. And I'm not going to be there forever. Yeah. Every job I've gotten, I should say this. Yeah. The minute I've gotten in, I start planning my exit. It doesn't sound bad. Who's the next person? Because if you plan, if I sit here and I'm comfortable and all right, I'm a CEO, yes, start planning for your next move. So when I joined Ballowworld, I told myself 5 years in Ballard. I did 6.5.
Oh, wow.
I told myself that, and I wrote it
Yeah.
in my life plan. I have a written life plan document.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm going to do this, and here I'm going to learn how to be a manager.
Yeah.
I'm going to learn the product. I actually wrote it down when I joined in 2017.
Yeah.
So this is why they say you must manifest what you want.
Yes.
And look at what happened every step of the way. It didn't just land. I prepared for it.
Yes.
Even when I was planning to leave Ballard.
Yeah.
It's just like this opportunity came before I crystallized that plan.
Mm-hmm.
But I had built myself, I told myself, I want to have this mindset.
Yeah.
Such that the stars aligned, the people I met aligned, and the network aligned, and I got into the interview process with KoBold.
Yeah.
Because I had done things, I had prepared myself 6 years earlier for that.
Yeah.
So most people just I want to be like you. Oh, you got to do the work. You got to do the work. So even now, when I got in, I was just like, okay, what's the next move? I even started calculating. I believe 7 is God's number. I did 7 years at First Quantum. I did 6.5 at Ballard.
Yes, so almost 7, yeah.
Yes, do the numbers. So I'm already saying, okay, so how old will I be?
Yeah.
So I mean, I shouldn't say that on the podcast because my bosses will hear me, but it's a conversation I have with them. We have that relationship with the founders of the company.
Yeah.
Everyone's always thinking of the next move.
Yeah.
That's how the world works. Another great book. I keep citing books. Only the Paranoid Survive by Andy Grove. He was the CEO of Intel. You know, all our computer processors from Intel. He wrote a book. So right now, Intel is failing as a company. It's been smashed by NVIDIA if you watch US stocks. But he took his book. He's the one who really transformed Intel. But Only the Paranoid Survive. Okay. Talks about always look ahead, always prepare. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. And it's a challenge to myself to think of my next move. Okay, so now when we talk about how you came about leadership, and when you look at the mining sector right now, do you feel that there's a sufficient crop of females that might be able to take up those leadership roles? And what do you think, if not, what do you think the mining sector needs to do to build that crop of people that are going to take over from you?
There's not a sufficient crop of female or male. You have...
So the leadership is mostly still not Zambian? Are we saying that?
Even if it's not Zambian, there is still not a sufficient crop even for the non-Zambians. Does that make sense?
Wow. Yeah.
So just because you're in it, or you have the opportunity to get in it, or the advantage to get in it, doesn't mean you're a good leader.
Yes.
You just have either an advantage.
Yeah.
So, okay, obviously I'm speaking from a broader perspective, but in the Zambian perspective, which is why I always say you need to train people on business leadership. You have Lusaka, being a corporate headquarter type city, has a lot of programs for leadership, has a lot of opportunities through existing companies, particularly the services sector, finance, insurance. They have so much, you know, the Zika groups, they have all these leadership things. Then the primary industries, agriculture, manufacturing, and mining. That side, there's not an opportunity for people to tap into those same business-minded training that the financial sector, or let me say the services sector gets. Does that make sense?
Yes,
services including HR.
Yeah.
So if those people don't have the opportunity to understand why leadership in the mining sector, including Zambian women in the mining sector, can get exposed to these networks, it's going to be hard to prepare the next crop. Now, that doesn't mean people are not taking initiative to either study further, to, you know, people invest in themselves and sign up for courses. They go do MBAs, they go do all those things. But then when you do that, what are you planning for? You should answer that yourself. A course is not going to answer that for you.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's where I see, like, obviously you see more alignment again in the services industry, which is a big industry in Zambia.
Yeah.
But for this country to propel its economy, the primary industries, manufacturing, agriculture, and mining in whatever form of it, the leadership in those sectors needs to transform in itself. So yes, there are leaders in it, but I don't know if we're actually actively preparing the next crop of people to run those businesses like a business.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's this assertion, because you're an engineer, you can run a mine. No, I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
Business principles are sound. Whether you are in agriculture, whether you're in financial services, the business principles are the same. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. And I think it's something that we need to discuss a lot more, especially in our organizations as leaders to just come up with ways to also instill that business minded. Like each person, at least at a leadership role, should have the mind that they are managing the future of this company. So that means, do they even know what the numbers mean at all?
Yes.
Or are they focusing on the operations only and neglecting the impact of certain operational decisions on the future of the company financially? So that's a very good point that you've mentioned.
And to add on,
yeah,
I'll also say this is systematic. It's how we've been educated in our education system. I didn't understand how to manage money until I went broke in university. Because in secondary school, now I know they do like business studies.
Okay.
But in secondary school, I never had business studies.
Yeah.
I never had some financial. I'm talking about at secondary. Yeah. Even if your parents say, oh, no, here's 5 kwacha, keep this money. There was no real sound advice of how to grow that money.
Yes.
Do you understand?
Yes.
You're just given your pocket money. Meanwhile, you know what the kwacha is doing.
Exactly.
So if you don't have it, start doing it with kids. And people in Zambia give this example. You know, you go to Kamwala, and a lot of the shops that are owned by Asian Zambians, their children are working at the tills on holidays.
Yes, on holidays.
Now, I'll give you a perfect example. My mother ran a small bed and breakfast here in Lusaka. Every time we asked her, we want to know what you're doing, she chased us. Muzani onongela business. You know, so you'll kill me. You'll take over when I die. You're waiting to die for us to know how to run this business. So obviously, I'm fortunate that my mother was alive until I was 35. But before she passed away, that last year, she was very sick. She had cancer. She started handing over, okay, here, this is the tip-in, but I had already been a manager at Barlow World. So I understood what needed to happen. Unfortunately, that bed and breakfast is still open 22 years later. It paid my school fees.
Wow.
It paid my school fees, my younger brother's school fees. And my younger brother liked business. So we are running it. Of course, that's now like back to the point of what you're applying at work must also apply in your private life. But the idea is that business should be adding value, should be employing people. Those people, when they get employed and they have the ability to spend, they are contributing to the economy. That's the impact of, I'll call it the spirit of entrepreneurship. The minute we are not able to run it, it impacts the 5 staff members we have there. And it impacts their families and their ability to educate their children. So the goal is so much bigger, is to add value to society, to grow the economy through, that's a service business, it's hospitality. But that's what I'm saying, if you have to start early. So I literally sit and think, so if I had been just involved, if she just let me see the books, we were used to ask her, let's help automate your systems. This thing of writing numbers in books, no, you will ruin my business. But again, it comes with the generation of parents. Not all Zambian parents, but I think anyone can relate to that.
Definitely. Okay, and you've just reminded me of how most Zambians have this entrepreneurship spirit, right? Most people are doing something on the side. But when they go to work, they're not thinking of just that kind of thought to say, this is also a business. So the same way that I am able to think of the financial impact of certain decisions with my business, I should also bring that with me to work. And true to what you said about the previous generation, it's like the money conversation was a bit hush-hush. Because for me, I would hear my parents complaining about being broke, but they were building a house. Okay, so how do I manage my finances such that I'm still able to support a family, still able to work on some long-term projects like property and all that? We don't know that. We come into the society knowing that I need to probably start working, build a house by a certain age. I don't know how I'm going to build a house or buy a car. Like, how am I going to manage my finances such that I'm able to do multiple things? So I think we need to have more of such conversations, especially as people are growing up, so that they don't just come and everything needs to be done a certain way. And for whatever reason, everyone in Zambia wants to build a house. They feel like that's the only, that's the main long-term investment that you have, which is good. I like that we all have that mindset.
It's a form of security. So any real estate investment is a form of security. But it is not the only method of investment. And that's what we've been limited to. Through, KoBold, I'm exposed to talking to global investors. And you're exposed to how they think. But you're also exposed to one of the most liquid, massive economies in trillions of dollars. And the US economy is still built on SMEs. Most people don't know this. Small and medium enterprises on the stock exchanges, they call it Main Street, still drive the US economy.
Yeah.
But they understand that beyond real estate, there are so many other investment vehicles.
Exactly.
And I've seen, to a degree, now in Zambia, people talk about securities. They talk about the treasury bonds. That's good. That's a fantastic move. But I always say, as a Lusaka person who lives on the Copper Belt, that is still limited to a certain pool of people.
Exactly.
Beyond which Zambia is big. Most people still live in rural areas.
Yes.
You know, not many people live in urban areas. I think it's maybe 55, 45%. Maybe 45% are urban. And that urban is really maybe between Copper Belt and Lusaka.
Yes.
But the mass of the population is still rural. Apart from pushing people to go to school to get an education, which is a form of an investment in your children, and beyond building a house.
Yeah.
What else are on the table? But our economy is also a bit simple.
Yeah.
Where there are not many options on how to invest. Chirimbas became a thing, and they're still a thing. But the concept of using a chirimba to get a pool of money and grow the money is still a form of an investment. Again, everything is a risk and a reward. Even that can fail. Even the decision to build a house can fail, because the decision how you source the capital to build that house matters. The cost of capital. Which bank will favor you? Others don't have the option to go to one of the bigger banks because you need your pay slip, you need all these things to meet certain criteria. So how many people are actually building houses? So many people are really building out of pocket. And it's really to say, all right, at the end of the day, I'll have a roof over my head.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Now, that's a very interesting conversation. I feel like we'll have a whole episode just to discuss this particular topic. But yeah, thanks for those insights. Now, I want to go a little bit into your own personal reflections, right? When you think about your younger self, what would you tell her today? If you were to give her a piece of advice and she's just starting out in mining or in life, what would you tell her?
Don't quit.
Okay.
Don't quit. Somebody described me as this. I need to remember the word they used. It was a big dictionary word. I was a very, is it vivacious? I was a very active child, but there would be times where you could tell someone saying this child is too much. You know what I mean? You know what I just had this ball of energy. I used to run all over the house. My mother, stop running. You know, I used to stomp. I used to make noise. Okay. But I think it's that has kind of allowed me to keep fighting. Yeah. You also get tired of fighting. I don't want to call it fighting, but you get exhausted, you know. I would still tell my younger self then, because there are times you withdraw because they've told you, don't be like this, play like this. I used to hate play. We used to have to play in the kitchen for some reason. I used to hate playing in the kitchen. I wanted to play outside. So I would always just run away. So I would tell that younger self, keep running outside. Even if they're telling you, come, well, Kasambe, just keep you know that whole thing, when you call the kid, you have to bath at 16 hours, you stay a bit longer, they beat you, but I should continue. And I tell every kid, just keep doing that. That ability to stretch yourself and know your limits. Of course, you need to be reined in as a child. You need your guide. But a lot of it was curiosity. So I would basically say, don't stop being curious. Okay. Don't stop being curious. And when you look back on your journey, what has been your proudest moment? I don't have a standout moment. I have a series of moments. I don't have a standout moment. Okay. I've been asked that question, and I don't have anything that jumps out. Okay. To me. That's also cool. Yeah. I've had a lot of proud moments. I don't have one that overrides the other. Okay. I can say my most recent one, it's only because it's fresh in my memory, is when I got my MBA from Lagos Business School in Nigeria. And it's only because it's fresh. But I don't have a standout proud moment. That was a hard program. Okay. That program was a mad program. Oh, wow. So I was so happy that I saw it through. It was part-time for 2 years, but it was hectic. Okay. Yeah, because I was working full-time. Yes. So do you think that's what made it hard? Because some people like to say their first degree was the hardest and everything they've done after is more manageable. Or was this one the hardest in terms of the content, or was it because you had to balance a demanding career at the same time? It was the hardest because I had to pay my school fees myself. Really? I mean, my first degree was a partial scholarship. Okay. And you're like, mommy will pay for it. You know what I mean? Type of thing. The second one had a stipend. The third one, FQM sponsored. Okay. This one, I paid serious dollars for this one. From my pocket, and I obviously paid in installments.
Yeah.
But it was a real deep investment in myself and an investment in the African cause. Because everyone was like, but why are you going to a business school in Nigeria? And they crooks, all these statements.
Yes.
But if you look at Nigerians and people say you think so highly of them, I do.
Yeah.
Those people know how the world views them, and they're still excellent.
Yeah.
In everything, music,
yeah,
education, they are hustlers.
yes.
And I wanted that energy, but I said, after all, people go there for church programs, so I'll go there
I'll go there for school.
for school for business. You know, so yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah. And so when we talk about you just managing through a school program, your work, you also love being spiritually fit, mentally fit, physically fit. How do you balance everything out?
It's not a balance, it's a decision.
Okay.
So you don't do them in sequence, you do them all at the same time.
Okay.
So I wake up, you have to pray. If you've been raised praying, Proverbs 22:6, train a child up how in a way he should go. When he's old, do not depart from it. If you've been raised praying, you will just naturally pray. It's very difficult if you've been doing it since you're a child. So it's just embedded.
Yeah.
I was always sporty. I was always playing sports. You're running 400 meters, 200 meters, and right through university, it was just part of it. Didn't matter what changed. You start work in another town, you find where the gym is, you go to the gym.
Yes.
So that's spiritual. Mentor, just having encouragement. Back to reading books. I'm away from those historical books. I read a lot of self-help books. The Road Less Traveled. In the meantime, Iyanla Van Zandt.
Okay.
Because so you naturally will gravitate to things that work for you. And then when people are telling you, I read this book or I watched this podcast, you then so you keep yourself busy. Idle mind is the devil's playground.
Yes.
So there's actually no need for balance. It's just part of me.
Yeah.
I'm not waking up like, if I skip a day of gym, I will not die. I'll just get back on it. Yeah. So there's a time for everything. There's also a time for rest.
Yes.
There's a time to recover. I have recovery days. Again, back to the God side of things. God, the seventh day was a day of rest.
Yes.
There's no way you can be running, even work-wise, without a break. So I respect my weekends.
Okay.
There are people who phone me, I'm like, this is the weekend, I'm not going to take this call.
Okay, boundaries.
Boundaries.
Yeah.
And I hate the age of cell phones. People have but you can't be calling me at 22 hours. I'm looking for a deal. No. So I'm unashamed. I'll tell people, this is my family time. Or if it's because I've got a business line and a personal work line.
Yeah.
Sometimes business people call on my personal. I've said, this is my family line. Don't call this phone.
Yes.
It's just a boundary. They might think I'm rude. But I miss the era of landlines.
Yes.
Where the phone is not on demand.
Yes.
So these phones have features, do not disturb features, focus time features. There's a reason, because also with technology, our attention span has shortened.
Yeah.
Watching a 2-hour movie, can barely watch a 1-minute meme before you're moving to the next meme.
Yes.
So it does something to your attention span. So there's time for no phone.
Yeah.
Once a year, I take time off and I go camping with no connectivity.
Nice.
In central Zambia, Tinsobe. And
nice.
I've got a tent, I've got a thing. I go and carry my Kamalitu cooker and everything.
Wow.
And it's quiet. Friday to Sunday, disconnected.
Wow.
Interestingly, and I read this, Bill Gates does that for 7 days in a year. So your time for rest is just as important. You can't be running nonstop.
Yeah.
You burn out, you die.
Yeah. And I think one thing that I like and respect about you is, while you speak about your personal boundaries, I think you also respect other people's boundaries, because there were times when it was like critical moments and I needed to submit something. You would call and say, okay, Delia, I know it's a weekend. I'm sorry, but can you submit this? And that makes it easier for the other person. They'll be like, okay, at least my boss respects that this is my personal time. But meanwhile, let's not get into the toxic.
That's true.
Yeah.
No, it's true. Even when people going on leave, I don't phone people on leave.
Yes.
I ignore, and then they'll call me, you didn't even phone me when I was on leave. I'm like, yeah, you're on leave.
You were on leave.
Because I don't want to get a phone call while I'm on leave. I should leave the system working and functioning. It should not be dependent on me. Of course, there'll be extremities. If there's the mining sector, if there's a serious accident.
Yes.
Or if you attend. Some things you're like, but you can manage that.
Exactly. And I think if you've done that succession and training of the people coming behind you well, it shouldn't even be an issue. You shouldn't be stressing yourself out while you're away. So Mfikeyi, what next for you and KoBold Metals?
Oh, we are in an exciting space. So I love what we are doing, and I can talk about mining and mineral exploration all day.
Okay.
I work in a company that it's a startup, by the way.
Yeah.
So the founders of the company are earth scientists and just amazing human beings. They're Americans, but they're just amazing people. And I'm in a space where you can talk freely and you can seed ideas. And any place that requires innovation is a place that should allow ideas and even divergent ideas to come through.
Yeah.
So what we are trying to do is transform how we explore for minerals, particularly critical minerals. Why? The world is already in a crisis point with climate change. Everyone can connect, and they might disagree with me, but can connect to the fact that the load shedding case is just terrible in Zambia.
Yes.
But for the past 20 years, if anybody has watched the water levels in the Kariba Dam, they've been dropping.
Yes.
Why we could not plan for alternatives, I'm not going to get into that. But if you just go and get the graphs of the water levels of the Kariba Dam, there's been a global shift in the climate.
Yeah.
Every year, the climate is getting warmer by a degree. That means places that were colder are getting warmer, places that are warmer are getting colder. That's why some of our winters in Zambia in June have been colder than a long time ago. That is it's such a seismic shift that we don't really see it every day. So at scale, this is about having big ideas.
Yeah.
How do we play a part to alleviate the impact of climate change? We need to transition.
Yeah.
If you don't farm it, you mine it. Everything we use, every piece of furniture in here, even these cameras here, they come from a product of mining. That's the first thing people must understand. We sometimes think mining is bad, it's evil, they are destroying. Let's go back to the caveman times. Then we should go and live like that. Because if it's not grown to eat, you have mined it. These things, this plastic is a byproduct of the petroleum industry.
Oh, wow.
So that's how even Vaseline is a byproduct of the petroleum industry.
Yeah.
So that's how Vaseline came to be. So what we are doing is we work in a space where we want to use technology to make more mineral discoveries, because in the last 100 years, everything that we know, every mine that has operated, all the discoveries have been found at surface. Back in the day, even now, when people go into certain parts of Zambia, they see a rock, oh, palimainapo, then they start extracting.
Yeah.
That's how mining started.
Yeah.
Now, those minerals, what we call critical minerals, their supply is dropping.
Yeah.
If you follow the Zambian copper production, it's been dropping in the last 10 years or so.
Yeah.
You only have 3-4 major producers in Zambia. So First Quantum, Barrick, you have now KCM and Mopani in terms of copper.
Yes.
So if our production hasn't changed, actually our production profile hasn't changed much from 1970s to now.
Oh, wow.
Yet we're an economy that is dependent on copper exports for the most part to attract revenue into the country. If that profile is going down, meaning our exports are dropping, we're not getting forex in, our other industries are not developed as strongly, and it's called the Dutch disease. It also happens to countries that produce oil and gas because you're heavily dependent on one sector. There's going to be a lot of shocks to the Zambian economy.
Yeah.
So we want to make more discoveries globally, but for Zambia, I'm just going to speak for Zambia, by making more copper discoveries. Right now, our Mingomba project is our flagship project. We'll be adding more copper inventory to Zambia's production, which means when you export more, the government can tax us more, corporate income tax. If there are more people employed, the government collects payee tax. They'll also get mineral royalty tax. Name all the taxes, withholding tax and all of that. But all of that goes into the coffers of the government, and that's what builds the national budget to plan for the next year. If you look at last year's budget, on top of the fact that we're servicing debt, there's a smaller amount that's going to economic affairs. Those things that are meant to drive industries. But you find that our budget, after we are trying to sort out the debt we have to pay, it has to go to public service, wages for the public servants. It has to go to, let me call it social welfare, health, education. Then whatever is left to now boost the economy, build infrastructure, is very little. So you need more industry. So in Zambia, we have the Mingomba project. We're now working at advanced exploration. We're moving into mine development so we can quickly get it into production, and that will be good for the country. But not only that, we keep exploring. We're looking in Northwestern Province. You can see a lot of the other miners are also boosting their exploration programs. What makes us different, because we've not been as a company, KoBold has not been around 10, 20, 30 years, is we use artificial intelligence. Because the techniques of exploration have not evolved in 50 years. The geophysical methods that we use, combined with how we do geochemical analysis. This is analysis of soil. So you pick some soil, you send it to a lab, you try understand what is the mineral content of it, and you try infer if there is a mineral deposit or if it's an anomaly, you know, to say there's something bigger here in these samples. But there's a lot more sophistication that goes into that than I've described. We are not doing it fast enough. For every $1 billion spent exploring, there's only less than one discovery.
Oh, wow.
That's how expensive it's become.
Yeah.
So what's the transformer? We need to be able to use algorithms, the ability to use supercomputing technologies. Now we've got these massive computers that work that should take years, should literally take months to a couple of weeks.
Yes.
So KoBold has a software engineering team. We also have a data science team, and they work with the geologists to build models to make discoveries. So we're in 60 countries. We've got 60 projects in 14 countries on 4 continents. So we've got Zambia, Namibia. In Africa, I take care of the Africa portfolio. So Zambia, we're looking at Namibia, we're looking at Botswana. We generally look at other countries from a business development perspective, but we need to understand the data that they have. So we would go to like the archive or the geological survey department and ask for data. We seek permission for data that is only available to the public. We don't want any special treatment. And that's what many companies do. You just say, all right, I'm coming in. What data is there that I can utilize? Because every company that operates, even in Zambia or any other country, you're meant to submit your work to the ministry. So then from that data, we're able to take it. We build algorithms and models to try understand how the mineral system forms. So in terms of, so we look at copper, cobalt, nickel, and lithium. So in the copper space, particularly the copper from the copper belt, Zambia and DRC, these are what we call sediment-hosted copper systems. So they formed in sediments. If you remember your geography, millions of years ago. So you want to understand how deep were they? What sort of structures? What happened? Were there earthquakes? Was there tectonic movement where the magma fueled itself up and then the copper atoms dislocated and attached to sulfur? So there's certain geological processes that happened to form and concentrate a certain amount of copper. And around the world, the Central African Copper Belt is one place. There's a part, it's called the Kupferschiefer in Europe or Poland. Then there's a certain part in some parts of Russia, Russia that had this specific type of copper system. Then the copper that's found in South America, Chile, Peru, is called a copper porphyry. It formed, and those places, they are very mountainous. So it formed differently. So our job is to get all that geological information, work with a data scientist who builds algorithms and runs it in a model. And then you go and experiment, you test, you drill. So exploration is you drill, you get samples. When you get your results back from the lab, you put them in the model, and the machine or the model learns from the information. That's where the machine learning part comes. So the geologist will be able to see it, and you'll compare with the algorithm or the machine learning output. And you see which is better. But because machine learning, can imagine if me and you had to do like calculation quickly, and then you're working with an algorithm here, it's just going to be faster. It doesn't mean our insights are discounted. The idea is you need to make an investment decision quickly. Do you want to wait a year before your return, or do you want to invest now?
Now,
So there's an element of the business side of it, which is what KoBold built its competitive advantage on. And it's extremely fun to see what our friends, at least from the first world, are doing. And this is why we partnered with, particularly from an education standpoint, we got Stanford University to partner with Copperbelt University and the University of Zambia to sponsor 10 students who are studying geology at master's level to learn data science, because they have to learn the codes and the programs and the algorithms that will help them in the future. Otherwise, Africa will be behind. If we don't realize that, if we keep teaching the methods we were teaching 30, 40 years ago, we're going to be left behind in the game of business, in the game of being competitive as a country.
So I'm just trying to tie in, and it's very interesting, the various techniques that you are mentioning now. So do you think that if we're able to replicate what you're doing at KoBold in the other traditional mining companies, do you think we would then be able to see an improvement in the contribution of the mining sector?
Yes, fundamentally. You want the biggest objective that the country wants from any mining operator, local or foreign, is drive production, boost sales, because it boosts the local economy. Firstly, the country gets revenue,
Yeah.
You also have an employed workforce.
Yeah.
Those are the things that drive the economy. For any company, it's also investing. It expects a return when it deploys a certain strategy. So Zambia being stable, its tax regime being predictable and consistent. There was a time in our history where I think the mining tax regime, was it changed, and I'm quoting somebody, 8 times in 16 years.
Oh, wow.
If you are a multinational investor thinking in billions of dollars, you
Yes.
cannot run a financial model on that inconsistency.
No.
Yes, every country has a right to adjust itself, but certain sectors need stability. But because of this dependency on the mining sector, right now there's a debate about the precious stones one or precious metals one. It's people are building their financial models on certain commodity prices. We don't control the commodity prices. There's a price of copper out there.
Yeah.
And everybody knows that copper demand will go up because people want electric vehicles, people want solar systems, wind power, all of that. So you have to think long term. Like when we look at the life of the Mingomba project, it's a 35-year life of mine.
Yeah.
So now, whatever we forecast, even as we start producing, we need to make sure that our models reduce the uncertainty financially, but even in the quantity and quality of copper we're going to extract. So that requires us to collaborate very closely with government. It also requires a lot of transparency. Naturally, the mining sector, historically, there's been a lot of suspicion from pre-colonial times to now. So I do understand and empathize that there's a lot of history.
Yes.
With mining firms, with behavior of different mining companies, which is why ESG has become a very important thing, even for shareholders. No shareholder sitting in another part of the world wants to know that a certain community was abused in this developing nation in exchange to make sure you can extract from it. Nobody wants that on their record. So I sit in the balance of speaking to investors and making sure they are comfortable of what we're doing in Zambia. Lots of visibility and lots of accountability. Anything we do, we have to be held accountable for according to the law.
Exactly. Okay. And so in speaking of accountability, ESG, what role do you see women playing in the future of mining, particularly when we talk about sustainability and innovation?
They are everywhere. Right now, across, let me say, the mining sector is not limited to any group of people. Whether you're in finance, procurement, strategic sourcing, community development, the technical fields, engineering. Right now on our project, we have so many women touching each space. And the important part is they all have a voice to contribute. They have a responsibility to contribute just like their male colleagues. So their voice is important because oftentimes they sometimes might see more because they are the foundation of a lot of these homes in our African culture. So when we engage with communities, most times we're talking with the women of those communities. So in Mingomba, there are 5 communities within our license area: Kewumba, Kasapa, Mingomba, Chewe, and Kasumbalesa. We have a team that goes out to them and reaches out and just finds out what are the community issues. Biggest thing is things like employment. Their children not going to school. Kasumbalesa, because we're on the border with the DRC, it's a trading town. Children would rather go and trade at the border than go to class. They'll even tell you, I get 600 kwacha every day to carry a bag of minimi when you want me to go sit in class. They'll tell you that. So that's the level, because you're at a border post where things are moving. Every day they are touching money. But then the question is, if systematically they are not learning and understanding, or they're not in the classroom. Because I can get why they say, but I'm getting money every day. Why should I sit in class? And not earn money so I can feed my family. So it's literally something that impacts our SDGs. We've aligned with the 8th National Development Plan. So I make sure I take time to read the 8th National Development Plan, the local district development plan, to understand what does this community or this town need. Then us as a corporate citizen, how do we partner with the municipality to solve collective problems in job creation, access to power, access to water, reducing the levels of poverty and things like that.
Okay, interesting. And I've learned quite a lot from you today.
Really?
And I'm sure the listeners have as well. So, Mfikeyi, we've talked about your personal journey, your career in mining, leadership, KoBold. What's one thing that you hope our viewers are going to take away from everything we've discussed today?
Get a career in mining? I don't know. I just feel like this mining has remained this dark space. People don't understand it. They don't understand its impact, its breadth. it's just continually communicating. I mean, at one point I was trying to ask, this is a good one actually.
Okay.
So obviously when our news broke sometime last year, there's all this debate on who we are and all of this. And it's funny to watch. And I keep saying, how do we bridge this disconnect? Because Zambia is a mining country. People still don't understand it.
Yes.
We don't even have a proper mining museum. So we launched an exhibit. I don't know if you saw the 60 years of Zambia.
Yes, I saw
And we took it round to different shopping malls. The idea was just to get people to walk through this and understand our history of mining, just as a starting point.
Yes.
And we're now working with Livingstone Museum so that it can go and rest there. The exhibit will go. So we're working to hand it over to Livingstone Museum as a donation from KoBold, as a feature. But because Livingstone Museum gets a lot of tourists, local and international, it would keep telling the story of Zambia. Okay. But it also has an alternative lens because we tried to capture the narratives from Zambian people who worked in the mining sector back then. Okay. Most times the story is told by other people. Even our books are written by other people who are not Zambian. Well-intentioned because they want to tell the story of Zambia, but it should come from those miners who lived in Luansha, in Kitwe. So that's the first thing, is we want to bridge this disconnect. And every Zambian wants to see, how is mining benefiting us? Because there's always this thing that it's going out. Yes. Mines do declare their taxes, most of them, at least the ones that are publicly listed, they're required to declare their taxes. Yeah. We're also required, even though we're in exploration, we're not making any revenue. So we're not mining anything. We're still building the mine right now, just for context. We're working on the construction, and by the early 2030s, we should be in production. So right now, we are just spending. It's going to cost us $2 billion to build that mine. Wow. That $2 billion is going to bring a lot of economic activity to Chirirawombo. It's going to create jobs, direct and indirect, IT, housing, because people need to migrate, services, people will migrate to their families, their children need to go to school. You can see the cascading impact. Yes. But many people still don't see the connect. So I think the mining sector has been poor about communicating its positive impact. We've seen when the mines go down, what happens to the towns? Kabwe, people saw it as a ghost town. Yes. You see Luansha, there was a time Luansha went down. So when it goes down, then people say, oh no, there are no mines, we need to open the mines. Even when we were having these challenges on the copper belt, you could see the impact of Kitwe. If you travel to Kitwe, Kitwe appearance just dropped. Yes. So we have a job to improve the image of the mining sector. From us as KoBold, who are explorers, we do a lot of communication. What we do in the community. Yeah. We built a school in Chirirawombo. We built a classroom block, not a school. An additional classroom block for grade 11 and 12 learners. Yeah. There was just no space. You know, with free education, now space has become the problem. Yes. But we did that. Yeah. And we donated it. We are working with in healthcare. And the idea is we want to be a good corporate citizen. Yeah. Not because it's a must, but it's a moral right to do that. The bridge that we need to close is people understanding the sector. Many Zambians have never even visited a mine. Yes. We've got so many things to say about it, but I told you how I was a driller. When you go and see people doing that work every day and the pride they have of how it feeds their families or helps them build a house, you empathize more. So because mines are also, it's not a place where you just bring people every day to look. You know, I can't just be coming to your office just to look. Yes. How do we get people to understand mining, especially here in Lusaka, what it's like to be in a mine? So we're planning to host like a services fair. Okay. To bring people to see what we do, like fundamentally to educate them. Many people want to come for contracts or deals and commercial reasons. That's fine as long as it's ethical. Yes. But we also just need to educate even secondary school goers, university students, come and see what work is like on a mineral exploration project. Okay. Even like attach them for a day to do that work. You will see people are like, okay, yes, they would run away. Yeah, so I think a lot. Yeah, that's the biggest thing. Zambians want to understand how the mines benefit us. They've been here for so many years. The country is still poor. If you pay taxes now, how do you hold our government accountable? Money goes into we pay all forms of taxes. Yes. How many of us, I know now people really take interest in the national budget and they listen. But how those resources are deployed to build the country. So if I know that 12% is going to economic affairs, I know that's little. Right now, the biggest thing is debt service. Yes. Once we are able to alleviate that pain, there should be more funding to address all these things that we say we don't see the country developing. Yes. And then obviously, as investors come in, tell them the problems and say, how can you collaborate with us to uplift these things? Okay. Yeah. Okay. It's a lot. I've said a lot in that. Yeah. And the point is, I don't think there's one answer. But yeah, we need to do a lot more to educate that, just like any sector, whether it's agriculture, manufacturing, I'll just say the primary industries, we need to stimulate them. Zambia should be a net producer, a net exporter, a net producer of so many food products. We shouldn't be importing certain things. Even manufacturing capacity, that's another part of the value chain we need to really explore and tap into.
Okay. No, Mfikeyi, thank you so much. I feel like we have so many more topics that we could go into, but I have really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope you have enjoyed being on the podcast.
I did. I think I revealed a bit too much.
Really? No, the audience is going to appreciate it, and I'm glad that you made the time to come and join us today.
You're welcome.
So to you, our audience, if you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye.